Tonight, the streets of Iran are ablaze, illuminated by the flickering light of burning barricades and the relentless determination of its people. The air is thick with smoke and tension as the city of Tehran becomes the epicenter of a nation on the edge. In Karaj, just outside the capital, an IRGC colonel has been assassinated, a shocking event that has sent shockwaves through the regime. This killing comes amid the most violent anti-government protests Iran has witnessed in years, a movement that has only grown in size and intensity. Unlike previous incidents, this was not the work of foreign agents or shadowy operatives. Instead, it was the protesters themselves, ordinary Iranians, who cornered and killed the colonel, taking matters into their own hands and crossing a line that few thought possible. This act marks a dramatic escalation, transforming what began as demonstrations into something far more dangerous: open insurgency. The streets have become battlegrounds, with protesters now willing to meet force with force. The regime's once feared security apparatus has been breached. Police shields lie shattered on the ground. Checkpoints have been overrun, and the symbols of state power are now battered and burning. For weeks, Iranians from all walks of life have risked everything: jobs, freedom, even their lives. Their demands have evolved, shifting from calls for economic relief to open cries for the downfall of the supreme leader and the end of the regime itself. The government's brutal response, tear gas, rubber bullets, and mass arrests, has only fueled the fire. Each crackdown seems to strengthen the resolve of the people, uniting them in their anger and their hope for change. Now, for the first time in decades, the people have struck back at the very heart of their oppressors. The assassination is a message. The regime is not untouchable, and the people are no longer afraid. The killing is both symbolic and strategic, a sign that the regime's aura of invincibility has been shattered. Graffiti and chants echo through the night as hope and defiance replace fear. Supreme Leader Khamenei has vowed revenge, appearing on television with a somber warning. Inside government halls, leaders meet in urgent, anxious sessions, while outside, the world watches, holding its breath. Internationally, the crisis has drawn sharp attention. President Trump has issued a stern warning to Tehran, urging the regime not to harm its own people and adding new layers of international pressure to an already volatile situation. Iran is now a tinderbox, its future uncertain. The killing of one man has lit a match, and the flames threaten to engulf not just Tehran, but the entire nation. The coming days will be critical, not just for Iran, but for the entire Middle East. The world is watching closely, aware that the outcome here could reshape the region for years to come. The stakes have never been higher. Every citizen, every protester, every official knows that what happens next could change the course of history. The regime is cornered, its power challenged in ways not seen since the revolution, and a cornered regime is always the most dangerous, willing to do anything to survive. Yet the opposition senses a turning point. Acts of defiance are spreading, women removing their headscarves, crowds cheering as security forces retreat. The spirit of resistance is alive and growing. The fear that once paralyzed the streets is evaporating, replaced by a new sense of courage and unity. Young and old alike are reclaiming their city, their voices echoing through the night. No one knows how far this inferno will spread, or what the dawn will bring. But tonight, Tehran stands at a breaking point, and the world is watching, waiting for what comes next. At the center of this unfolding drama stands IRGC Colonel Asghar Pashapour, a name that has become both feared and infamous across Iran. Once he was little more than a shadowy figure, his identity known only to those within the highest echelons of the regime. But in recent years, his notoriety has grown, and his face has become a symbol of the state's iron-fisted response to dissent. Once a faceless enforcer, Pashapour is now infamous, his reputation preceding him wherever unrest brews. As a senior commander in the elite Quds force and a close confidant of the late Qasem Soleimani, Pashapour wielded immense power. He was not just a military man, but a trusted architect of the regime's most sensitive operations, both at home and abroad. Among protesters, he earned the chilling nickname, Butcher of Karaj, a title that reflected the deep scars left by his actions on the city's streets. During the bloody November protests of 2019, Pashapour is accused of ordering snipers to open fire on unarmed demonstrators. The crackdown was swift and merciless, leaving hundreds dead and thousands wounded. Survivors still recall the terror that swept through the crowds as bullets rained down from rooftops. His name quickly became synonymous with the regime's most ruthless and violent tactics, a byword for state brutality in the face of popular uprising. but Pashapour's influence extended beyond the battlefield. He was a key player in the IRGC's vast intelligence network, orchestrating surveillance, tracking activists, and crushing dissent with calculated precision. His reach was long, and his methods relentless. To the regime, he was a loyal guardian, a steadfast protector of the Islamic Republic's core interests, honored in official ceremonies and praised by state media as a hero. But to ordinary Iranians, he embodied impunity and terror. A man who operated above the law, shielded by power, and feared by those who dared to speak out. When news broke of his killing, it was clear this was no random act of violence. It was a calculated, deliberate act of retribution, a message sent to the heart of the regime. Protesters saw him as a war criminal who had long evaded justice, a symbol of the regime's unchecked cruelty finally brought down. In the streets, masked demonstrators executed effigies and burned his portrait, convinced that they had struck a blow against the man they held responsible for countless deaths and disappearances. For many, this was more than an assassination. It was an act of revolutionary justice, a turning point in the struggle against oppression. The rules of engagement have been shattered, and the boundaries between protest and open conflict are dissolving before the world's eyes. The gravity of this moment cannot be overstated. Iran stands at a crossroads, and the legacy of Colonel Asghar Pashapour will haunt both the regime and its opponents for years to come. Pashapour's killing was not a random act of violence, but a meticulously planned operation, executed with precision and intent. This was no crime of passion or sudden outburst. It was a deliberate act, orchestrated by those who had grown tired of waiting for justice that never came. For days, protesters tracked his every move, blending into the city's shadows. They used encrypted messaging apps, coordinated through walkie-talkies, and relied on a network of lookouts stationed on rooftops and street corners. Every step was calculated, every detail scrutinized as they mapped out his routines and vulnerabilities. When the moment came, they struck with ruthless efficiency. A barricade of burning tires forced his car to a halt, flames lighting up the night as masked figures dragged him from the vehicle. The air was thick with smoke and tension, the city holding its breath. The crowd's rage was unmistakable. Shouts of "Death to the dictator" echoed through the streets, a chorus of voices that had been silenced for too long now roaring with defiance. This was not just anger over one man, but decades of pain and frustration erupting all at once. Tears mixed with screams, and the chaos of the moment reflected years of oppression and loss. In that instant, the protesters became judge, jury, and executioner. They saw themselves as instruments of justice, delivering payback for the regime's countless acts of violence. For them, this was not murder, it was retribution. "They shoot us in the streets, now we bite back," one activist wrote online, his words spreading rapidly through underground networks and social media channels. The message resonated with thousands who had suffered in silence. Online, the act was celebrated as a turning point, a moment when fear shifted from the oppressed to the oppressors. Viral footage and headlines declared a new era, one where the people refused to be intimidated. Suddenly, high-ranking officials who once moved with impunity now found themselves vulnerable. The illusion of their untouchability was shattered, replaced by a new sense of uncertainty and dread. The psychological impact was profound. Protesters, once hunted, now stared down their oppressors with newfound determination. The balance of power had shifted. The hunters had become the hunted. The regime's weapon of fear, once used to control the masses, now cut both ways. Security forces, once feared, now faced a population unafraid to fight back. The message was unmistakable. No one in power was safe anymore. Graffiti and warnings appeared overnight, a chilling reminder that the rules had changed. The uprising had entered a new, dangerous phase. The streets, once ruled by fear, now pulsed with defiance and the promise of reckoning. The stakes had never been higher. The regime's response is to blame foreign enemies, calling the assassination a terrorist act. State media ignores the protests, instead pushing a narrative of foreign-backed chaos. Colonel Pashapour is portrayed as a martyr, killed by US and Israel-backed saboteurs. This script justifies a harsher crackdown, framing repression as counter-terrorism. The judiciary promises no leniency. The IRGC vows to crush sedition. But many Iranians see through the lies. This is a desperate attempt to control a story, slipping away. The gap between regime propaganda and reality has never been wider. On the ground, the reality is carnage. Rights groups estimate over 500 killed by security forces in 2 weeks, thousands more wounded. Hospitals are overwhelmed, treating gunshot victims in secret to avoid arrests. IRGC agents storm emergency rooms, dragging away the injured. Some hospitals are ordered to turn away protest victims, leaving them to die. Mass arrests sweep up protesters, journalists, students, and labor leaders. Prisons overflow, fears of torture and executions grow. The regime aims to decapitate the movement by targeting anyone with a voice. This is a campaign of terror, not law enforcement. Every casualty only hardens the resolve of the opposition. The violence is creating martyrs, not submission. Protesters feel they have nothing left to lose. To hide its crackdown, the regime imposes a near-total internet blackout. Iran is digitally besieged, cut off from the world. The blackout cripples protest coordination and blocks evidence of state violence. The regime fears the smartphone camera more than any weapon. Despite the blackout, activists use satellite links to leak videos and reports. Each fragment of truth that escapes is an act of defiance. The information war is as crucial as the street battles. The regime wants darkness. Protesters fight to shine a light. Even the most repressive regimes struggle to contain the truth in the digital age. The world is watching, even through the blackout. This rage is rooted in years of economic misery. The spark was subsidy cuts on essentials, but the fuel is inflation, unemployment, and corruption. Sanctions have strangled the economy, but many blame the regime's own corruption and misplaced priorities. The IRGC controls much of the economy, enriching itself as ordinary people suffer. Billions are spent abroad while hospitals and schools crumble. The protest slogan, "Not Gaza, not Lebanon, my life for Iran," captures the anger. Economic despair has stripped away fear, turning survival into rebellion. The fight for bread has become a fight for dignity and freedom. What began as economic protests has become a nationwide uprising. The movement spans cities and provinces, uniting Iranians across class and ethnicity. University students march with factory workers. The middle class stands with the poor. Chants have shifted from economic demands to death to the dictator. Protesters target regime symbols, burning government buildings and tearing down portraits. The movement is leaderless and decentralized, making it hard to crush. The demand is clear: the end of the Islamic Republic. State violence has escalated, but so has the protesters' resolve. Each funeral becomes a new protest. The regime's brutality only fuels the uprising. The cycle of violence is spiraling. The old order is under siege. Iran stands on the brink of revolution. The assassination of Colonel Pashapour is a watershed moment. The regime's aura of invincibility is shattered. Protesters have shown they can strike back, emboldening others. The government faces a choice: escalate repression or risk collapse. Either path leads to instability and bloodshed. The conflict is now existential for both sides. The door to peaceful reform has closed. Iran's future hangs in the balance. As both sides dig in, the world watches a nation at the edge. Is this the beginning of the end for the Islamic Republic?